Myra Santos checked her reflection in the service elevator mirror and sighed. Her white catering uniform was already wrinkled, and her dark curls were escaping from their pins. Somewhere above her, on the 40th floor of the Celestial Hotel, 500 corporate executives were waiting for appetizers she was supposed to be serving. She had taken this job because her small bakery was 3 months behind on rent. The catering agency paid well for last-minute replacements. Mira needed every dollar she could find. The elevator stopped, and Mira stepped out into a corridor filled with golden light. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead like captured stars. The walls were draped in midnight blue velvet, and somewhere beyond the ornate doors, an orchestra was playing a waltz. This did not look like a corporate event. Mira checked her assignment sheet, but before she could read it, a wave of masked guests swept through the corridor and carried her through the golden doors. She found herself in a ballroom that belonged in a fairy tale. Roses covered every surface in shades of deep purple and silver. Guests wore elaborate masks, decorated with feathers and jewels. Their gowns and suits probably cost more than her entire apartment. She needed to leave immediately. Mira spotted glass doors leading to a terrace and made her way through the crowd, keeping her head down. The night air hit her face like a blessing when she finally escaped outside. The city spread below her like a carpet of lights, beautiful and unreachable. You look like you are trying to disappear. The voice came from her left. A man stood near the railing, wearing a simple black mask that covered his eyes. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and his tuxedo fit him like it had been made specifically for his body. When he smiled, something in Myra's chest tightened. "I am not supposed to be here," she admitted. "Neither am I, really." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of something warm and clean. "These parties are my father's idea of networking. I find them exhausting. Then why come?" "Family obligation." His eyes behind the mask were dark and intent. "But suddenly, I am glad I did." "Dance with me." Mira laughed nervously. "I cannot dance, and I am dressed completely wrong." "You look perfect to me," he extended his hand. "One dance. Then you can disappear if you want, against every rational thought." Mira took his hand. His palm was warm against hers, as he led her to a corner of the terrace where the music still reached them. He placed one hand on her waist with a gentleness that made her breath catch. They moved together, like they had been dancing their whole lives. Mira forgot about her uniform, her failing bakery, her mounting debts. She forgot everything except the warmth of his body. Against hers, in the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the world. "Am Julian," he said. "Softly, Mira?" "Mira." He repeated her name, like it was something precious. "Will you take off your mask?" She touched her face and realized she was not wearing one. "I do not have a mask." His smile widened. "Then you are the most honest person at this party." Before she could respond, a woman's sharp voice cut through the air. "Julian, there you are. The investors from Tokyo are waiting." Mira watched an elegant woman approach, her silver mask doing nothing to hide her disapproval. The woman's eyes swept over Mira's catering uniform, and her painted lips curved into a sneer. "Who is this?" Julian's arm tightened around Mira's waist. "A friend." Julian Mercer does not have friends who dress like servants. The name hit Mira like cold water. Julian Mercer. The tech billionaire whose face appeared on magazine covers. The man worth more than some small countries. She stepped back so quickly she nearly stumbled. "I have to go, Myra." "Wait." But she was already running, her heart pounding as she pushed through the ballroom toward any exit she could find. She had been dancing with Julian Mercer like some ridiculous fairy tale, and he had no idea she was just a struggling baker who had walked through the wrong door. She found a service exit and burst through it, not stopping until she reached the employee parking lot. Only then did she realize she had lost her grandmother's charm bracelet somewhere in the chaos. It did not matter. Some mistakes were better left behind. Julian Mercer had not slept in 3 days. The small silver bracelet sat on his desk, its tiny charms catching the morning light. A miniature whisk, a rolling pin, a cupcake. Whoever Mira was, she loved to bake. His assistant Catherine had called him obsessed. His father had called him foolish. But Julian could not forget the way she had looked at him on that terrace, like he was just a man instead of a fortune. He had hired investigators. They had traced her uniform to a catering agency, but she had used a friend's name for the assignment. Dead end after dead end. Then one of his analysts found something. A small bakery in Brooklyn called Sweet Surrender had been featured in a local food blog 3 months ago. The owner was a young woman with dark curly hair who made pastries that the blogger described as pure magic. Julian was standing outside that bakery by noon. The shop was tiny, sandwiched between a laundromat and a hardware store. The paint was peeling and the awning was faded, but the display window held the most beautiful cakes Julian had ever seen. Delicate flowers made of sugar, layers of cream and fruit that looked like edible art. A bell chimed when he pushed open the door. The smell of butter and vanilla wrapped around him like a warm embrace. And there she was. Mira stood behind the counter, flour dusted across her cheek, her dark curls pinned up in a messy bun. When she saw him, her face went pale. "What are you doing here?" Julian held up the charm bracelet. "You dropped this." Mira's hand flew to her bare wrist. "My grandmother's bracelet. I thought it was gone forever. Almost was. I have been searching for you for 3 days. Why?" Her voice was sharp with suspicion. "So you could laugh about the catering girl who crashed your fancy party? So I could see you again?" Julian set the bracelet on the counter between them. "That dance was the most real moment I have experienced in years. You did not know who I was. You did not want anything from me. You just danced with me because you wanted to." Mira picked up the bracelet and held it against her chest. "I do not belong in your world, Mr. Mercer. Julian, and maybe I do not belong in mine either." He looked around the small bakery, at the handwritten menu board, and the mismatched chairs. "This place is beautiful. This place is failing." The admission seemed to surprise her. "I am 3 months behind on rent. The catering job was supposed to help, but I never even made it to the right party." Julian saw his opportunity. "I need a caterer for my company events. The woman I usually hire is retiring. I want to offer you the contract." Mira's eyes narrowed. "You do not even know if my food is good, and let me try something." She hesitated, then turned and disappeared into the back kitchen. When she returned, she carried a small plate with a single pastry. It was a delicate tart, filled with cream and topped with fresh berries arranged like a flower. Julian took a bite, his eyes closed involuntarily. The flavors were perfect, sweet and tart and somehow comforting all at once. "This is extraordinary. It is my grandmother's recipe." Myra's voice softened. "She taught me to bake before she passed." Julian set down the plate and met her eyes. "Take the contract, Mira. Let me help you save this place. What do you get in return?" "A chance to know you better." He smiled. "Purely professional, of course?" Mira studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. "Fine, but this is business, nothing more." Julian shook her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his palm. Of course he agreed. Strictly business. Neither of them believed it for a second. 6 weeks of working together had destroyed every boundary Mira tried to build. Julian appeared at her bakery almost daily, claiming he needed to discuss menus and arrangements. But their conversations always wandered into deeper territory: childhood memories, secret dreams, fears they had never shared with anyone else. Today he had brought her to his private vineyard in the Hudson Valley. The autumn leaves were turning gold and crimson around them as they walked through rows of grapevines heavy with fruit. "My mother planted these vines before she left," Julian said quietly. "I keep them because they remind me that beautiful things can grow even when the person who started them is gone." Myra touched a cluster of purple grapes gently. "What happened to her?" "She could not handle my father's world. The expectations, the coldness. She left when I was 12 and never looked back." Julian's voice was carefully neutral. "I learned early that showing emotion was weakness in my family. That sounds lonely." It was. "Until I met someone on a terrace who looked at me like I was just a person." He turned to face her fully. "You changed something in me that night, Mira. I have been trying to figure out what ever since." Mira's heart was beating too fast. "Julian, we are too different. Your ex-fiancé made that very clear." Serena is not my ex-fiancée. She is someone my father wanted me to marry. I never loved her. He stepped closer. I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. Do you feel? Instead of answering, Julian cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. His lips were warm and tasted faintly of wine. Mira melted into him, her fingers gripping the front of his jacket as years of loneliness and longing poured into the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Mira Santos checked her reflection in the service elevator mirror and sighed. Her white catering uniform was like that, Julian whispered. I feel like that. They spent the rest of the afternoon in his vineyard cottage, talking and laughing and stealing kisses between glasses of wine. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Mira let herself believe that maybe this impossible thing could work. She did not know that. Serena Ashworth was watching from the shadows, photographing everything with cold fury in her eyes. The charity gala was the most prestigious event of the season. Mira wore a borrowed gown of deep blue that Julian had insisted on buying for her. She felt like an imposter among the diamonds and designer labels. But Julian's hand on her back steadied her. You are the most beautiful woman here, he murmured, before Mira could respond. Serena appeared before them like a poisonous flower. Her red gown clung to her body, and her smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Julian, darling? And your little baker friend? Serena's voice carried across the nearby groups. I did some research on her, you know. Fascinating what one can find. Julian's expression hardened. Serena, do not do this. Do what? Share the truth? Serena pulled out her phone and projected images onto a nearby screen. Photographs of Myra's crumbling bakery, her modest apartment, documents showing her debts. This woman is broke, Julian. She latched onto you for your money. The whispers started immediately. Mira felt the weight of hundreds of judging eyes pressing against her. That is not true, she said, her voice shaking. Then why were you sneaking into his party dressed as a servant? Serena's laugh was cruel. Classic gold digger move. Pretend to be the innocent working girl, catch a billionaire. Julian's business partners were approaching, their faces grave. One of them pulled Julian aside, speaking urgently. Mira watched Julian's face as he listened. She saw the hesitation, the conflict. She saw him glancing between her and the powerful men who controlled his business future. He did not say anything. The silence was worse than any rejection. I understand, Mira said quietly. She removed the diamond earrings Julian had given her and pressed them into his palm. I never wanted your money. I only wanted you. But I see now that you cannot separate the two. She walked out of the gala with her head held high, refusing to let them see her cry. She made it to the street, then to the subway, then to her empty apartment before the tears finally came. She had been foolish to think love could bridge such different worlds. The press conference was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Every major news outlet had cameras trained on Julian Mercer as he stepped up to the microphone. I have a statement to make, he said, his voice steady. Last night, the woman I love was publicly humiliated at a charity event. I stood by and let it happen because I was afraid of what people would think. The reporters leaned forward, sensing scandal. I'm here to say that I was wrong. Mira Santos is the most genuine, talented, and kind person I have ever known. She never wanted my money. She tried to push me away when she found out who I was. She made me earn every moment of her time. Julian looked directly into the cameras. To anyone who cannot accept her, I have one thing to say. I do not need your acceptance. I do not need your approval. I need her. He walked off the stage without taking questions. 2 hours later, he stood on the porch of a small house in Queens where Mira's aunt lived. Mira opened the door with red-rimmed eyes that widened when she saw him. I watched the press conference, she said. Then you know I meant every word. Julian pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple and beautiful, with a band made from melted silver and tiny charms that matched her bracelet. I had this made from the bracelet you dropped. Your grandmother's charms are woven into the metal. He dropped to one knee. Myra Santos, I do not deserve you. But I am asking you to give me the rest of my life to try. Mira was crying, but she was also smiling. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." They married 3 months later at his vineyard, surrounded by her bakery employees, his real friends, and the autumn vines his mother had planted. Mira wore her grandmother's bracelet, now returned to her wrist, and Julian wore a smile that had not left his face since she said yes. Some doors open by accident, but the best ones lead exactly where you need to be.